Hello, 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 testing. December 30th, 1990, talking with Ida Clark.
Kind person.
Granny is a kind person?
Yes, she was always busy, as you could imagine with the flock of kids that she had.
Yeah. So what kind of things did she do?
She made all our clothes.
Mm-hmm.
We lived out in the hill country.
Yeah.
Of course, you could imagine that our food was very simple.
Yeah.
Just whatever we could get.
Mm-hmm.
But we had a good time. I remember we went around barefooted, which we loved. And we had a river right near us. We used to play there quite a bit.
I remember you telling me something about climbing trees.
Oh, yes. That was one of our favorite occupations.
When you had whooping cough?
I don't remember that.
I can remember you telling me about climbing up in the tree when you all had whooping cough and the big kids were at the top. And you were one of the little kids.
I don't really remember that about the big kids going up.
What were the days like? How did you spend the day?
My mother we had school.
Mm-hmm.
We had, in the morning, we had to get ready, and my mother used to set us lessons, which we did. She was firm but kind to us. I don't remember her spanking us or anything like that, but with so many of us, I imagine she had to be quite strict. Then, for a while, there were just the younger ones left, and Connie and Maud and Hugh were away in school. So was Fred, in boarding school. And we continued with our lessons until my mother, well, she went as far as she could. She only went up to 4th standard herself. But she taught us beyond that. Had to go to school when the Cambridge exams, had to write the Cambridge exams. Because we couldn't have that privately like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which, when I consider it, I think it was quite an achievement for her, who never went above 4th standard.
Yeah.
That she took us further than what she had. But she used to study our lessons and then teach them to us. And, as you see, we survived that. We passed our exams.
Well, all of you did very well even later on.
Yeah, well, we all passed the Cambridge exams, the senior Cambridge exams, and went on to university.
Mm-hmm.
Maud, Hugh were doctors.
Yeah.
Connie, teacher. Fred, unfortunately, he had a very bad start. He was very ill when he was small, and when he was a baby. He never seemed to get over that. Mm-hmm. And India was no place for a white person to do uneducated job, shall I say. So my parents sent him out with the Salvation Army to Australia, mm-hmm. where he worked on a farm, but he couldn't do that in India.
No, I can understand that.
So he grew up in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine he was about 12, 13 when he went to Australia.
So I didn't realize he was so young when he went there.
Yeah.
Do you remember him much?
I remember him because he's just a little bit older than I was.
Mm-hmm. I thought there was a gap in the family between you and Fred.
No, it was between Connie and Fred. There were two girls born then, Elsie and Nellie.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Connie used to, when she was home, she used to teach us quite a bit. She became a teacher herself.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but she helped in the teaching of the younger ones.
Mm-hmm. Maud didn't?
No, I don't remember Maud doing it.
How long was school just in the mornings then?
Yes. We used to have regular, after Chutahazri, we had that till what we call breakfast, about 11 o'clock was school time.
Mm-hmm. And then?
Oh, my mother had to rest.
You didn't?
we could play around then. Well, Mother had, after she taught us, they were the younger ones too. I imagine that she had children after we were school aged. Leslie. Anyway, I don't know how, when I think back about it, I think she must have been an amazing woman.
Yeah.
We did have an ayah to look after us.
Mm-hmm.
Take us out for walks and see that we didn't get into trouble. And you kind of needed that because where we were, there were dogs running around and there were snakes and all kinds of things that were dangerous to children. And even when you were kids, we had an eye to see where you played.
Mm-hmm. I can remember Nati Bai.
Yeah. I mean, just to, well, there were dogs of all kinds wandering around and keep you from poking into places where there may be a scorpion or a snake.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't have been happy to have you kids just wandering on your own.
When you were young, who did you play with? Just your brothers and sisters or the Indian kids?
I used to play with the Indian kids.
Uh-huh. What kind of
Brothers and sisters weren't interesting.
What kind of games did you play? What did you do?
Well, one thing I liked best, and I think that continued on into my grown-up years, I liked fishing. We had a river near us.
Uh-huh.
And we'd go and lift up stones and little fish there and try and catch them. And if we got enough, we'd light a fire and have a little meal out there.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I wouldn't have let you do things like that.
I know. You're telling me things.
Well, in those days, I think my father and mother were held in such high respect. There were no other white people there. People used to come out especially to see these white people. And people from miles around later on, we had a white cat. And they'd never seen a white cat. And they'd come begging to see Mr. Gora Manjri. That was really Gora Manjri, white cat. And that was a great attraction, a white cat.
And blonde kids.
And I suppose so. We didn't realize that. I mean, of course we knew we were different, but but we played just the games that they did. We'd have been pretty lonely if we didn't play with them.
Yeah.
And I think that was a good thing. We felt like one of them, and I think that has colored my thoughts, my feelings towards Indian life. Thinking of all the things we did as children together.
Yeah.
Now, isn't that enough fun?
I wanted to, what was your father like? You can talk about your mother.
My father, he was not... He had been brought up by an aunt. His parents died when he was young.
Yeah.
Aunt Nellie, and she was very strict with him.
Mm-hmm.
Then as a young fellow, he joined the military.
Yeah.
And that's how he got out to India, was he came with the army.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't a highly educated person. My mother was more so. My mother was well, there were no schools that my mother could go to, but her mother taught her. My mother liked books, and then when we were small, we were out in the hill country. There's no school there for us.
Uh-huh.
So she taught us all the time. Until I had to go for Cambridge exams.
Yeah. Was your father very strict?
He's a bit of a blustery man, but I don't know that he's strict.
You sound as if you knew how to manage him.
Well, I think he's lenient in a way, but he could bluster and, fall us down. My mother was a much quieter woman. You knew Mother, didn't you?
Of course I did. She lived with us. Remember?
Yeah, that's right. But she was always very quiet and gentle.
Uh-huh. Yes, that's how I remember her too.
And she'd calm down my father'd get excited and she said, now birds. He'd calm down.
Yeah. How did your parents meet?
My father went out to India in the army.
Yeah.
And he was stationed in Ajmer.
Uh-huh.
And my mother's people were railway people in Ajmer.
Uh-huh.
My grandfather, Lewis, was a Welshman.
Yeah.
And my father met my mother at the church thing. He was interested in church affairs, and my mother was, I think she taught Sunday school there in Ajmer it was.
Yeah.
And they met, and that was that.
Yeah. And
When he finished his spell of duty, he retired from the army and they got married. And in the meantime, they were both got interested in church work. At that time, it was Canadian Presbyterian.
yeah.
And my mother wasn't Canadian, nor was my father. They joined...
We take everybody, I guess.
Well, my father wasn't a full missionary. He was just kind of employed by the Canadian mission. And then later, he was made a full missionary, and I don't know when that was. It was after we were growing up, because I remember the time that he was made a full missionary, we had much more money.
That would help, wouldn't
He
it?
certainly did with school affairs.
Yeah.
And we were eligible to go to Woodstock then, because the Canadian mission was cooperating there, and it was much cheaper. Connie and the older ones went to Panchgani,
Yeah.
which was, they had to pay higher fees there.
So Woodstock, when you got eligible, was better too. I remember a picture that you have, or had, of the four of you girls, all dressed alike. And you said, I think you said at the time that you thought it was taken when you were visiting Granny's mother.
Oh, in Ajmer.
Did you see her parents much, or did you know them much?
About once a year my mother used to go to Ajmer to visit her.
Was her father still alive then or not?
Yes, he. I forget what Grandpa's name was. Someone Lewis.
John.
John Lewis, yes.
Mm-hmm.
We used to go there and visit.
Mm-hmm.
But it was because my grandfather was on the railway. He could get a pass for us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd never been able to afford going there.
Yeah.
We traveled on a railway pass.
Well, was that a big adventure then to go see them?
Oh, yes. To go on a train. We had to go, we were in Mainde that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know where Mainde
Yeah.
was. And we had to go to the railway station in Dover.
Yeah.
And that was an all-night trip in an ox cart.
Mm-hmm.
We used to think it's great fun to make up our beds in the ox cart. Then on a moonlight night, if it was moonlight, we'd imagine all kinds of creatures around us. We had a lovely time going, frightening ourselves.
Did any real creatures arrive?
No, but I imagine that we'd hear jackals and things, but we never were in any danger.
And then you take the train.
Then we took the train and all the way up to the Western Ghats to Panchgani. We went to school there to begin with.
And when you went to visit your grandparents, it was to Ajmer, was it?
Ajmer.
Yeah. What do you remember about them?
About the grandparents?
Yeah.
I don't, not too much. We didn't see a great deal of them. We had my mother's sister, Aunt Alice.
Yeah.
She lived with us for a while and we didn't like her. She's so strict with us. Aunt Alice, well, she had been married. I don't know what happened to her husband. But she didn't have one when she lived with us. I don't know whether he died or what. We weren't interested in that. But she used to teach us lessons. And well, she's strict. We used to like my mother to teach us. My mother was a very gentle person, even though she did have to spank us at times. But still.
Yeah.
Aunt Alice never had children, so she expected us to behave.
Well, I guess your older brothers and sisters had worked your mother in, too.
I presume they did. And they went to school. My mother didn't have much education. But I can still see my mother sitting down and getting Connie to tell her everything she'd learned in mathematics and things. She learned from her. And Connie'd come home. It was Connie, not Maud so much. But Connie became the teacher.
Yes. Sounds as if she started young.
Yeah. And she'd, I can see Mother sitting down and doing algebra and things like that. It had no meaning to me then, but she was interested in doing things like that.
What about your father? Did he not? Was he interested in learning too?
No, he didn't go very far in education. He wasn't. He wasn't. He's rather uneducated man, shall I say? But he was very good with horses.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Oh yes, he used to love. He had horses, a couple of them. Well, in the hill country, that's the only way he could get around.
Yeah,
riding. He and his horses, and I was scared stiff of them, particularly a black one called Sambo. He'd kick. We wouldn't go near his stable because he'd turn his back to us, and he didn't like us. I guess we must have teased him or something, but he didn't like us.
Yeah. And so he attacked you.
My father had to have horses because he did most of his. There were no cars at that time. When we went to school finally, we had to go in an ox cart to the station 28 miles away.
And that was an all-night trip.
All-night trip.
Yeah, I remember ox carts are slow.
We were quite comfortable. Isn't that enough for one session?
Are you getting tired?
I can't think of anything more.
Well, what was it? It was one thing we didn't finish up on. You talked about going to visit your grandparents. What kind of place did they live in? What kind of things did you do there when you visited? Did you have to be really good?
Yeah. My grandmother was very gentle, very much like my mother. Looked alike, I think. My grandfather was rather stout and brisk with us. I was half scared of him. But my granny was very, very gentle and loving. But my grandfather was in the railway.
Yes.
I don't know what he did actually. I don't think he was in the railway shops. It was where they made the engines and things in Ajmer. And they had a whole slew of kids.
Yeah.
I had lots of aunts and uncles. We didn't see them much because it was a big, long journey to see them and for them to come out. One of the aunts lived with us for a while, and we didn't like her.
Yeah, she lived after a while. She lived with your cousin Claude, didn't she?
Yes. No, Aunt Alice, she was very strict. Maybe we needed it, but we didn't like her.
Yeah. I mentioned that old picture I had seen. Do you have old photographs put away somewhere?
I don't think so. We've moved too much. Gradually they've just
disappeared.
Yeah, sometimes you and others of the family have liked them and taken them.
Yeah, except this one of the four of you girls that I remember seeing once when you were young. I was wondering if some of those really old ones might still be around somewhere.
I'll have a look. I have some old pictures somewhere.
It would be nice to see them if you have them. And if maybe even get copies if possible. Because you didn't get very many pictures taken when you were young.
Most certainly not, and we had to go to photographers to get them taken.
And I think I remember you telling me that you didn't like the way the neck on those dresses sat that you were all wearing. And all four of you were dressed in matching dresses.
I must look and see if I have them someplace, have pictures.
Yeah. Do you want me to turn it off?
Yeah.
This was a recording of Ida Clark, December 30th, 1992, in conversation with Margaret Ward.